Just within the month of April, there have been at least two tragic turns of events. And it's sad because there's some similarity in the events that are occurring. And I will honestly say that I feel like it has a lot to do with domestic violence in the first case scenario, and in the second case scenario, there is, well, both of them. For the first story and the second story, I believe there has to do with mental illness. And I'm hearing videos already coming out blaming black females for these killings. But they're not, I would warn that those people who are watching those videos, of those people that are posting videos blaming black females for the actions of mentally disabled males who have not seek any counseling or any help for their mental illness. I would suggest that you do not feed into the lies, because there is a serious illness, and I believe these are isolated incidences, unfortunately, and innocent people, innocent lives have been taken because of someone who has some real serious mental illnesses, and they have domestic violence in their past, and they have a history of abusing people, and they need help. And unfortunately, they didn't get the help that they needed fast enough, or in the right, they didn't take the right steps, rather, to get the help that they needed. And so you're looking at a couple, and I know a lot of people know about this situation if you've been, watching the news about the San Bernadino shooting. And recently there was lots of reports that the school is opening in North Park in San Bernardino, and that the staff has a new plan of action for security to be more alert and heightened since the incident that occurred April 10th, 2017 on a Monday. It was a situation where a Karen Elaine Smith of 53 years of age, she was a special education teacher, she was gunned down by her husband, Cedric Anderson. And the school is North Park Elementary in San Bernardino, California. And it said that one of the staff members knew who he was. So it almost seemed like there was no way of really preparing for a situation of that sort. It's just unfortunate that a child by the name of Jonathan Martinez was caught in the middle of the gunfire. And it's really sad because he was in the classroom and he was standing, I guess, next to the teacher, as kids do, and unfortunately his life was taken. There was another boy who was also wounded, but he survived. And so it's just really sad that these tragic incidents are happening here in our time period. But in California, with schools, even with the incident that happened with the church in Charleston, South Carolina, it makes me think that places that you would feel that were safety or trustworthy places like maybe a school or a church, a hospital even, that nowhere is really safe. And I guess people take that whole thing for granted, and they don't realize that schools are really really vulnerable, and churches are really vulnerable, because they open up their doors to virtually everyone. At least that's how it's been until these unfortunate acts occurred. But what I wanted to talk about is not to just blame all black men and all black women. I will say that there has been tensions in the black community on a lot of political issues, even within our culture. But there has been male and female problems where there's disagreements on political issues, and sometimes issues surrounding whom should date whom. And there's many videos out, and some videos are very extreme, some are very hateful, some are pointing out some of the frustrations that women have and that males have. And sometimes people will take those frustrations and go a step further and do things that they later will regret. But I feel like if you're in a relationship that is suffering, and you have differences of opinion, and you can't agree to disagree, and you know that the relationship has a lot of arguing, you never get along, you have a lot of anger towards one another, it's never really resolved, you don't feel like it's a safe environment with you being with that other individual, then you need to try to seek counseling. And if it's something within the person themselves, if they have a history of domestic violence or mental illness, or if they have a history of just violence, then they need some counseling. They shouldn't be in a relationship with someone if they're a threat to themselves or others. And unfortunately, in this turn of events, Cedric took his own life after taking his wife and an innocent child's life. And I could sit here and I could point fingers and blame different people, but I really feel like it has to do with the individuals themselves. I wouldn't think that it would be fair to blame all black females or all black males, since this one guy is not all black males, and this one black female is not all black females. So the sick people that are posting videos blaming a whole race of individuals for the actions of a few, you need counseling. You need some mental help counseling, seriously. And I would suggest that anybody that posts videos like that, whoever's watching those videos, and if you hear that be on the alert for those people that are posting videos, because you might hear something in the news about them going around killing people, if they have that kind of hate that's stored up inside of them, because that's a sign of mental illness. When you're not rational, you're not thinking clear, and you blame a whole entire group of people for the actions of one or two individuals that are unhinged, that needed help. And I mean needed help fast. So it's sad. So I have had some videos where I've talked about people who are unromantic, and couples, maybe situations where some males are unromantic, and there are women that are unromantic. There are many people that do unromantic things, but that might be those individuals within themselves. Maybe they're not the romantic type of individual, but romance is a different story. Violence is a whole nother ball game altogether. So when it comes to domestic violence and abuse towards another person, there needs to be a plan of action for some help, some mental counseling, and some help with the person's mindset, what their thought process is, what is going on at the time that they feel the need to be abusive in their words and in their actions, to be physically abusive. And so I think people don't realize how serious these issues have been lately and what it does to a lot of people. It affects people because now you have people that are really, really looking at all of this closely, because there could be more to these stories than what people know. So, domestic violence, I've always said, has been an issue, and it has not really been looked at close enough. And this can go either way. So, I saw an article where it said calls to San Bernadino women's shelter reportedly doubled after the shooting. Immediately after that shooting, there apparently were many calls because there are women that are in relationships that are similar to this. So Cedric Anderson, he walked into his wife's classroom at North Park Elementary on Monday and fired 10 rounds with a .357 Magnum. And he killed his wife, Karen Smith, and an 8-year-old student, Jonathan Martinez, before turning the gun on himself. Another student is recovering from the bullet wound to the torso. So weeks before the shooting, Anderson had accused his wife of infidelity, leading to her to move out of their shared home. So Anderson had a criminal history and a record of domestic violence. But Smith didn't take her estranged husband's threats serious enough. So, after moving out of the home, I guess she thought that if she'd go somewhere else, that maybe it would stop. But that wasn't what happened. Of course, we see what the outcome of that is. So, now that this incident has occurred, people are looking at couples, relationships, domestic violence, and what is it all about, and how does it begin, and what causes there are. What can we do to make schools more safe so that incidences like these or other incidences that might be different, but also learning that schools are very vulnerable. You have soft targets, is what they say, and in churches are welcoming to different people and populations in the public. And so I believe that is why people are looking at these incidences a lot more closer now. So if you see any signs of, a person that, they're overly possessive, they have to, clock your times you come home and the times you leave. They're following you to work. They don't trust anything that you say. They act really suspicious and strange acting. Their mannerisms change. Maybe they're accusing you of things that you never did. There might be some telltale signs. They're arguing with you and there's no rationality in the arguments. They're threatening to, physical to do physical acts of aggression towards you. Those are things that people need to take serious. Some people, unfortunately, don't take it serious fast enough, and that's when you hear of tragic endings like this. So I believe that there's a lot of people out there who get in relationships thinking that these type of incidents are, a 1 in a million type of thing. It isn't. There are a lot of women, there are a lot of men in relationships that have physical abuse, that have violence, that have infidelity going on, that have, and it's not just cheating. It could be a number of things. It could have to do with money problems. You wouldn't believe how some relationships will become bitter over money issues. So it could be a number of issues. It could be maybe in-laws. It could be a past history, like this man, where he had a past history of domestic violence towards previous partners. So he apparently had anger issues. So when you have people who don't want to listen to you, you're always arguing, they feel like everything you say is something wrong with they don't want to hear you talk anymore. Everything you say, they don't believe anything you say, or they're accusing you of cheating, and you're not cheating, then the relationship is not healthy. Either you get counseling, or you get some kind of help, or outside, mental help for the individual themselves. And if they see that they don't have a problem and they feel they're not unstable, but you see the signs of violence and physical aggression, then that's the time to get out of the situation as safe as possible before it does turn into something tragic. And unfortunately, there were people that met their end to this whole story that unfolded. And so it's just really sad. There's been a lot of sad things that have gone on lately. So sometimes there's not one person that is to blame always in these instances. Because if you heard me earlier, it did say that she didn't take the threats serious enough. So you do have people who enter in relationships and they see the signs, but they ignore the signs. And so it did say that he had threatened her, that Cedric threatened Karen, and she didn't take the signs serious enough. So you have people that will make excuses. Oh, I can change him. Oh, he really doesn't mean what he says. He's not going to carry all of that out. He's just talking. He's just, putting on a show. He's just angry right now. Nothing's going to happen. In a few days, it'll all come to an end. That is not always what happens. You need to take everything someone says when they are threatening you and threatening your life and others' lives. Those are the type of words that you have to take serious, because we are living in a time where violence is just upon everyone right now. It just seems like a very violent time. So it's always been something. But since the incident has occurred, the one child survived, and that one child was able to be released, I believe. I'm not sure if they were released from the hospital just yet, but I'm looking at the article. Actually, it was talking about how, I'm panning down, so it's just sad. It was talking about how there's a crisis support hotline that people can reach. It's a 24/7 hotline, 877-503-1850. So again, that number is area code 877-503-1850. And so those that are worried about their safety should call 911 immediately if they feel that they're being confronted in a relationship with whomever that is, potentially lethal. They should call 911 right away if you suspect that your life is in danger or others' lives are in danger. So it's saying that calls have doubled since the incident, that She told the site just one day after the shooting, as men and women, once afraid to reach out, suddenly felt the urge or urgencies of their situation. So this can go either way. Domestic violence, the person that fears that they could commit a heinous act, and the person that fears they could be a victim of domestic violence. So it can go either way. So I put this in here. It says, I love listening to lies when I know the truth. So a lot of times people will make excuses for their partners. From what I've learned about domestic violence survivors, because I've worked or volunteered rather in a shelters with people who had dealt with domestic abuse, that they'll make sometimes the victim themselves will make excuses for the person who is suffering from mental illness, or from, maybe they have anger issues. And what I thought was really sick that I heard more recently is that there's this guy actually, he's on YouTube, where he posts these videos. He has lots of videos, but all of his videos are about something that black women have done to the black community, or how he hates black females, or the reason why these guys are killers is because of black women. So instead of him looking at it as these are isolated incidences, they're unfortunate, and there's a victim, and then there's somebody that is suffering from mental, or they're mentally disturbed, or from a violent past and a history, he doesn't look at it like, he's like, oh no, it's black women's fault. So I think something's wrong with him. So beware of videos like that. But this is North Park Elementary, and this is a shirt in remembrance to Jonathan Martinez. And these what are some of the stars or handcrafted designs that his classmates and people or fellow classmates of the school made for him in like a memorial, which is really sad. But everybody is trying to heal from the whole entire incident, and it's a very unfortunate incident. And among all of this, you can't sit there and you can't say, oh, it's all of these people's fault, or it's all of women's fault, or it's all the fault of, you know, somebody of a particular background, or ethnicity, or gender. You'd have to look at the person's background, their history of domestic violence towards other partners, because if it didn't happen to her, it would have happened to someone else. So that's the way I see it, and it's just a sad, sad story. So the next story that is really scary is happening actually as we speak, and there is a manhunt out for a male who is an active shooter in Cleveland, Ohio. But it's said that he's moving about, and he's moving to different areas, and they've been looking for a guy by the name of Steve Steffens. He's 37 years of age. He's accused of a homicide on Sunday of a 74-year-old Ohio resident named Robert Godwin Sr., and it has been publicly disowned by he has been publicly disowned by his family, according to the Twitter post from his account. The shooting, which was streamed on Facebook Live, took place at 635 East 93rd Street around 2 p.m. So the Twitter post on Steffen's account reads, "We absolutely do not condone this type of behavior and this atrocity. Therefore, we do not consider Steve a part of this family. I would like everyone to refrain from posting pictures of our family in association with Steve, for we do not want our young ones to be burdened by this man. Please respect our privacy." Cleveland Police Department issued an aggravated murder warrant out against Steve or Steve Steffens on Sunday night. They also alerted all the residents of Pennsylvania, New York, Indiana, and Michigan, as the manhunt is still on and authorities suspect he might have fled the state. So Steffens is an employee of Beach Brook, a children's behavioral health center in Ohio. In a separate video on Facebook page, he claimed to have killed 12 people that day. So he called this his Easter Day slaughter. So his Facebook post mentioned that he had lost everything to gambling, according to NBC News, and police authorities are yet to confirm the number of victims he really did kill. So they suspect that he may not be telling the truth about all of that. That may be just to scare people. But again, these are the descriptions of this man from Cleveland, Ohio. This is the manhunt, and it has the description of how he looks and his height, his weight, and when he was last seen and what car he was driving. So if you are in an area nearby and if you witness someone with this that fits the description, he is armed and dangerous, and it says that you need to call authorities immediately and alert them to his whereabouts. So they've gotten several calls about this man being on the loose, and so it's just a sad situation. Again, I could say, oh, it's all black men's fault, but this is one black man. Oh yeah, there was another incident prior to this that I talked about, and it happened to be a black guy, but these are three different individuals with different lives. All of them have some issues, of course, but they're separate incidences. And this man is a very troubled man. All people are not thinking like him. There are some people out there from other cultures and backgrounds who have mental illness or history of mental illness, or maybe come from homes or home life or have a troubled past. But you cannot blame one gender, you cannot blame one group of people, you cannot even blame all women or a particular group of women for the actions of this one guy. He is an adult, he's a full grown man, and he knows what he's doing. If he can post his killing on Facebook, then he needs to be held accountable for it, not black females. It was said that his killing was initially because of a failed relationship. Again, if you're in a relationship with someone who has mental illness, or you see any signs of mental illness, if they're overly aggressive, yelling, screaming, physically abusive, you need to find help. Seek help right away. And just don't let this be you. And there are some situations that seem unavoidable. From what I've heard, when people are in a domestic abuse relationship, again, like I said, some find it not as easy to escape. It's not as escapable. So like that first incident with Karen Elaine Smith, she probably waited until he left the house before she could actually leave, and unfortunately he knew her place of work and the address. Of course, if you're in a relationship with people, they're going to know where you work. So that's the unfortunate thing about the whole incident. Even if they don't do it on the work site, they can wait for you to come home or wait for you to leave work. So that is why you seek help right away whenever you see the signs of violence, domestic violence. And another thing, wait. There's nothing wrong with being single. I'd rather be single and alive and wait for the right person than dead.